I'm Sachin and I'm the DBHMS, I'm the engineer of the project.
So this is what they call a living building. So who knows what a living building challenge? Has anyone heard of the living building challenge?
Yes.
Why is there one person in every group? Okay, so in general, most buildings are built to building codes, right? So a building code basically says, build this. If you build it anything less, then it's like a tenement or illegal. So building codes are sort of like the bare minimum. The living building challenge is what we call a building certification or a label. It's kind of like an Energy Star, right? You can buy a regular dishwasher, and as long as it doesn't catch on fire, it's like legit. But if you get an Energy Star dishwasher, then it's like better. Living buildings are like Energy Star labels, but like supersized, because it's not just energy, it's everything. It's water, it's soil, it's site, it's society, it's like all stuff. So it's like, and it is one of the most challenging certifications for buildings in like our world. And it's great because it's attuned with your mission about gardening and urban farming and sustainability. Okay, so the living building has got 7 petals, right? 7 petals, and within each petal, there's a little piece of the pollen. There's about, I think, 20 different like things we have to do. So I'm going to go through the petals: place, water, energy, health, materials, equity, and beauty. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the place petal. So the place petal is really, as you would think, it's like, where do you put the building? And the first thing they don't want you to do is don't put the building on farmland, right? There's not a lot of farmland in the world. So whatever farmland we have, we got to keep it, because once you ruin that farmland, it's pretty much gone. It's really hard to build new farmland. So don't put it on a farmland. They do want, part of the other piece of this living building project is to have some growth, some plant growth, some farming. So again, well-suited mission, super easy. You guys already were partnering up with a farming group, so that was like a no-brainer. But the other piece to the land is that they want you to help restore land. So not only do you not want to build on farmland, they want you to restore the land that you are working on. So we're restoring, there's a native prairie, right? We're restoring, we're not just putting grass out there, we're gonna make some pollinator gardens, we're gonna sort of enhance the land that we are touching, as well as there is a requirement to do some sort of engagement with the biosphere, or the biome. So maybe we'll do some work with the forest preserve to sort of make the forest preserves are like a little bit better. And then the last piece to place is to sort of prevent sprawl. So there's a lot of focus on bike, provisions for bike racks, provisions for car sharing, encouraging public transit, right? They want to just reduce those single car trips. And so I'm going to work with Paul a little bit on sort of some car sharing, maybe figure out how to sort of reduce the number of single family trips that are taken every day for all of you guys who have to work here, as well as all the students. So the place petal, as you can imagine, deals with all the sort of those placey things, really not actually with the building. It's just like all these bigger society things about place. But Sachin going to talk about water and energy.
Thanks, Len. So I'm an engineer of pipe training, so I'll talk about water first and then about energy. So this building is designed to conserve water which you use and then recycle water. So and the best way to think about water is to think about the water cycle. You know, the water falls from the sky, and then what happens to it and where it goes. In our area, you know, we're fortunate. We have one of the largest freshwater sources here, but still we want to use it carefully as a resource and be able to kind of manage it better. So as part of the Living Building Challenge, you're really required to be net zero water in a lot of ways, but there are city regulations which don't allow us to do certain things. So we haven't, and I'll talk about those in a minute, but we've done a lot of other things. So for example, a lot of our plumbing fixtures, like our toilets, our sinks and things, so on and so forth, the ones which are in this building use conserved water. They actually use less water than your typical plumbing fixtures in typical schools or other buildings. So that's the first thing we do in terms of conserving water. And then it's about, you saw that, I don't know if you've seen the big cistern on the north side of the building. And it's a 10,000 gallon tank, and we collect all the rainwater which falls on this building. And there's actually an underground pipe which connects the cistern to the building. You don't see the pipe, it's below the ground. So, and then we use that water, it comes back into the building, and we treat it. So we filter it, and we treat it, and then it goes into the toilets. And you may have seen the sign on the toilets, non-potable water, don't drink. We all know we should be drinking that water, but the codes and the regulations require us to post that sign.
But it's clean enough, so you could drink it. Just saying.
Mine's gonna be first.
Yeah, and then the other thing we do is we manage all the storm water which falls on our building and on our site. None of it leaves the building. The only water that leaves the site is our sewer, is our sanitary. And that's because the city would not allow us to treat it on site, the regulations did. So apart from that, we've done everything else as required in the Living Building Challenge to conserve water, to reuse water, and kind of work that through. So switching on to energy. Anybody have any questions on water? Okay, I'll move on to energy. By the way, what grade do you guys teach?
Middle school.
Middle school, okay. Because we're trying to calibrate who we're talking to and kind of adjust what we're saying accordingly. So
We're the smart ones.
well, we can give you some more advanced information. So.
Wait,
the lights on so we
am I one?
Yeah.
Put two and two together.
So with energy, this building is designed, every aspect of this building is designed to actually, over the course of a year, this building will generate more energy than it uses. That's really the concept of a net positive building. Sometimes you'll hear people say net zero. Net zero means where you balance the energy generation with the energy use over the course of 365 days, 1 year, 1 calendar year. So that's really, and our system is designed to be net positive. And, and we start with the building enclosure, with the building envelope, and it's about optimizing it. You'll see our windows are triple pane. There's 3 panes of glass in it. You may have seen when most places there's only 2. So that's where they're highly insulated. There's a lot of insulation in the walls. There's insulation under the slab of the first floor. There's a lot of insulation on the roof. So it's like a tight box. Think of it as like a cooler. And then we've carefully placed windows in there so that we can, and I'll let Todd talk more about those later, Todd and Angel. So the idea is to minimize the amount of energy we consume in the building. And what is the main energy use? It's lighting, and it's heating and cooling. Now, it is also all the appliances, so the computers, the devices, the projectors. In the kitchen, there's a whole lot of cooking equipment. So all of those are factored into it. So if you notice, the lights at the edge there by the windows are dimmer versus the lights over the interior. So you see that little thing to the right of the chrome dot on the ceiling there? That's a daylight sensor. It's measuring the amount of daylight in here, and it's going to continuously start adjusting these lights. It's going to start dimming them. So you have even light level, but we're conserving energy. And then instead of light switches, all of these spaces have this little panel. This is your light switch. So, and if you touch it, it has 4 buttons, if I can call them that. The top one says welcome. When you walk into the space, you want to turn on the lights, you hit the welcome button, the lights all come on. Now if you walk out of if we all walk out of the space, within 10 minutes, the lights will all turn off. That other little plastic thing on the left of that chrome dot, that's an occupancy sensor. So it detects whether there's people in here or not. And then 10 minutes after you leave, the lights should turn off. If they don't, you should let us know. Because something is not working right and we're using more energy than we should be, and then we need to come in and address that. Also, there's a button, the bottom button on there says goodbye. So when you walk out the building, walk out the space, if you want to turn on the lights manually to conserve energy, just hit the goodbye button and they all turn off and you can walk out. And then there's 2 other buttons in between which let you adjust some of the lights within the space. So you can change the dimming levels and things like that. And these lights are kind of zoned in groups, and we can share we have a cheat sheet on a plan which color coded, which shows what lights are zoned where. So that little screen doesn't control the lights for all of this. It's zoned. Every zone has one of those. So we've broken the building into zones so you can control the lights individually in each zone. That's really how it's broken down. The lights are all LEDs, so they're really efficient. Moving on to the heating and cooling system. So unlike a traditional building, so unlike your current school or other schools or any other CPS schools, or an office building or your home, you get air, heating and cooling from a duct like that. So it either blows cold air in the summertime or it blows warm air in the wintertime. This building is different. We do have that duct work, but the only purpose of that duct is to bring in fresh air for air quality. You'll see these white sensors on the wall and they say IAQ. That stands for indoor air quality. There'll be a number next to it because it tells what sensor number it is. So they're measuring air quality and we're adjusting how much fresh air we need into the building. Because if we bring in too much, we have to expend energy because that air right now is hot and humid. In the winter it's going to be cold. So we have to expend energy tempering it. So to kind of conserving energy, we adjust that. So, and if there's, like we have quite a few people in here, it's going to say, oh, I need more fresh air. It's going to bring in more fresh air. So it monitors and measures air quality and maintains that all the time. So for heating and cooling, the way we do heating and cooling is not with air. I just said that. We do it with this. This has water running through these pipes. And when you get up, come by and touch these. If you touch the pipe, you'll find that the ones at the bottom are colder than the ones at the top. So we have cold water running through the slab. There's miles and miles of pipe in your school on both the floors. So right now what's happening is you are the heater. You have electromagnetic waves which are coming off of you and hitting that cold floor. And because there's cold water running in it, it's absorbing that heat and taking it back somewhere else. So we can reject it from the building. In the winter time, it reverses. It has warm water going through it. So it's radiating that heat. Think of it like a mini sun, a low temperature sun in the winter time. And in the summertime, you are the sun and you're giving it heat. So that water is much more efficient because it's denser. The density of water is much higher than air. So we can, it's much more effective to move and it can carry a lot more heat because the specific heat of water is also higher. So that's kind of what it does, and that's how we use this space. The other thing I always tell is when you have a radiant system like this, you don't need to set your temperatures like you would on an all-air system. On an all-air system, most people in the summertime like to set it to 72 to 73 degrees. If you did that with this, you would actually feel cold in this space. So you really want to set the thermostat to about 75 to 76 degrees. There are some thermostats, some of them don't have a screen, they just have a slider. So that slider gives you a couple of degrees of adjustment. If you push it up, it warms it up a couple of degrees. If you push it down, it cools it a couple of degrees. So that's the adjustment you have on that slider. And then in the winter time, it's the reverse. If you set it to 72 or 70 degrees, 72 degrees, you're going to be too warm in this space. So I always recommend in the winter time, set it to somewhere between 68 to 70. Also, because the tubing is everywhere in the slab, it is a very even comfort. If you notice, it's not drafty in here. You don't feel the air, but you feel cool. So that's really the trick. Now, you can put carpet. When you put carpet, because it's electromagnetic waves, just like the sun, if you put a piece of paper between you and the sun, you don't feel the heat. So if I put carpet, it takes away that electromagnetic. So what will happen then is the floor, the concrete will warm or cool the carpet, and then the carpet will start radiating. So that's what it'll do. So that's something to keep in mind. That's part of the reason for having the concrete floors in here. And then really, we've designed the building. Our construction has built the building. So we passed on the baton to them. Now we're passing on the baton to all of you. Because without you, without you operating it the way it's intended to be operated, we're not going to get to this net zero goal.
So what he's getting at is part of the program is to prove that we're doing it, right? We've designed this to theoretically work. In the academic world, this could be net positive. But the living building challenge people, they're like, well, you've got to prove it. So once we get the solar panels installed, which we think is going to happen sometime this fall, we get some shakedown period, then we have 12 months of like living in it, and all the kids are going to be here, windows going to be open, doors are going to be open, lights going to be on, lights going to be off. We have to sort of like manage that, and you know, we're limited by our budget, right? We only have so much electricity. Whatever those panels make, that's all we got. We don't have any more. So we sort of have a year to sort of do it, and hopefully it's a sunny year, so we have a lot of power, but right, maybe not, who knows? So that's why the occupant use is part of this, and there's a lot of sensors, there's a lot of heaters, there's a lot of thermostats. Every village is individually zoned. So we were talking about doing some games between the villages. Hey, look at the 8th graders, they're just using all this electricity. The 1st graders, they're like sitting in the dark, they're huddled, like whatever, you know, right? But because we're not sure how it's going to shake out, you know, come February of 2025, when we're sort of at the end of our period. But part of this is, yeah, when do we open the windows? Because if you open the windows today, that's like a bad idea. And so, you know, we have to have some way of telling you, and you guys tell the kids, don't open the windows. But I'm sure there's going to be some days in November when it's probably going to be great out, right? Great temperature, low relative humidity. Open the windows, because if the windows are open, system's off, we're saving energy. That all goes into our little account, our energy account. So we're not sure how this is all going to translate, but that's the plan.
Direct attention. There's actually a nice graphic. It's one of my favorite graphics. Is the energy budget. I think it's this one, right? This is the electric use, and so we have different pieces: pumps, fans, cooling, heating. So we basically built a budget of all the energy that's being used in the building, and now we're going to test it out. And if people start using space heaters or leaving computers on or whatever, leaving lights on, well, lights will shut off after 10 minutes. But you know. We're going to have some challenges, and so we're going to want to have a feedback loop with you all and the students, probably through you. That's probably the logical way to do it, so that we can manage that as time goes on. There is a whole building automation system which is constantly monitoring and testing things that, you know, Sachin and the building engineer can tap into. We're trying to figure out a way where we can output some of that data so that the students can understand it and do it in an intelligible way. And it can be a behavioral sort of, you know, game of sorts. You know, if we do this, how does it affect the building? If we do that, you know, what does it do? So
right, because it's hourly data. So they could, for example, look at the data on one day, and then the next day change their behavior and see what the result is. Right, sort of a very direct relationship effect kind of thing. So we're not sure how that's all going to work in the curriculum and the age group, but there's a ton of information that we can somehow extract from the system. It's all IP based, so
Yeah, and there's no natural gas in the building. It's fossil fuel free, so it's 100% electric for everything in the building. The other thing you'll notice is that in each of the villages, like in that room, there's this water heater. It's way at the bottom. In some of the villages, it's all exposed out in the open. You'd be like, why did you put it in the closet? You know, or in the kitchen, it's out in the open. So those are special water heaters. They actually take the heat from the space and make hot water. So in return, they're cooling the space. So that's why in the kitchen, they're close to where the cooking area is. You're going to grab that heat and put that into the water, make hot water, and provide cooling in the space at the same time. So those are the kind of things which we very deliberately done, which are different in your school than in a typical school.
So there's a lot of, we call them heat exchangers, there's a lot of energy exchange going, because what we're trying to do is every time a piece of energy leaves the building, we want to grab as much energy. We've already spent a lot of energy conditioning that. We want to make sure that we're not just wasting it. So there's heat exchangers on the water side, there's heat exchangers on the air side, there's a lot of heat energy exchange.
Yeah, so let me talk about the geothermal.
Yeah.
So the way we do the heating and cooling, so at home we have an air conditioner which is outside your home, which is blowing, which is running in the summertime, blowing warm air everywhere.
It's really loud.
It's really loud. It's taking the heat from the space and throwing it out into the air. We don't have that in this building. What we have is we have about 40 geothermal wells. So these are 6-inch holes which are drilled 450 feet deep into the ground. It's like a little heat exchanger. There's 40 of them, and they are spaced 20 feet on center. So in the summertime, we take the heat from the building and we put it in the ground. It's like a battery, thermal battery in the ground. In the winter time, we grab that heat and put it back into the building. So we're using the sun's annual cycle to our advantage there. Now, granted, in the ground, it's not insulated around it, so we don't retain all of it. Some of it we lose, but it makes the system much more efficient than a traditional air conditioner outside the building.
One tip during the winter, the north side of your parking lot is going to be melted with snow.
No, that's not true.
It's not snow melt?
No, it's not snow melt. and that came from me coining it a reverse snow melt system, and I think I've confused everybody with that. That's the reason it's made. Yeah.
That's a recharge. It's a recharger.
It's a recharge, yeah.
Okay, so place, water, energy. The next petal is health and happiness. And that really deals with the interior environment, both on sort of the windows and views as well as materials. So one of the things about buildings is they use a lot of materials, and a lot of those materials tend to be kind of not good for you. Like new car smell, right? Not good. Like it's actually kind of all these VOCs, volatile organic compounds, right? We've tried to eliminate as much of that as possible. The paints, the caulks, anything like wet and sticky is clean. Even a lot of this furniture, there's testing programs. They stick it in a chamber. They like let it sit there. They basically cook it for a week and see how much stuff is like coming out of it. There's a lot of glue involved in making all of this stuff. So we've tried to eliminate that. There's daylight, so where you don't have daylight windows, you'll see there's skylights inside. So one of the trade-offs with doing not a long spready building that has windows everywhere, doing a very compact building, while it's efficient from a thermal, right, because the box is about as efficient as we could get, we run out of daylight, so you'll see skylights everywhere to give good daylight. And then I'm working with Paul on a cleaning program to use non-toxic cleaners, so like not all cleaners are equal, so trying to use the better of the bad we have to clean, we know that, but to limit the amount of really bad chemicals. And then a little bit, so there's a lot related to nature and views and windows in this health and happiness petal, but it's really lots of chemicals, indoor chemicals and not breathing. And as well as the airflow, there's filters, there's pretty fancy filters in the airflow to keep the fresh air, and there's an indoor air quality system to sort of measure that there's like, there are some pretty great chemicals that it monitors, so again, we can output all that, right? Oh my God, the CO2 is going up in the space. Like, everyone hold their breath, see what happens, or like, who knows?
Since we're using the air from outside, let's say that the air quality outside isn't that good, would there be a way that the building is filtering that air, or are we using the air?
Oh, it filters it. So there's some pretty fancy, these got MERV 13 filters. So, I don't exactly know in the scale of good to bad, but MERV 13 is like the high
MERV
end.
13 is what they recommended when COVID first came around. They said you should have those filters in most buildings. That was the recommendation to kind of improve the systems. And they're just one step off from a HEPA filter, really. So because if we put HEPA filters, what happens is it's a lot more resistance to airflow, so our energy goes up. So we're trying to find this balance between good air quality, good filtering, and how much energy we consume. We've kind of all the air that comes in gets filtered before it's brought into the building.
But the windows, it doesn't. So if you open the window, hopefully if it's a nice day, good outdoor air quality, good temperature, we're on windows all day long. But then, oh my God, it's a high, Canada's burning again, right? There's smoke everywhere. Close the windows. It'll all come. I mean, there's 4 big, really cool air handlers that do this conditioning. And, it's too bad we couldn't get them. There's no better way to. There's a lot of cool stuff on the roof. You just can't see it. Well, like the geothermal too. It's 400 feet under the ground. You can't see it. Okay, the next petal is materials. Well, that's neat. Okay, so in addition to the materials and the chemicals that come off of a material, there's a lot of materials that are just inherently have stuff in them that we're trying to eliminate.
And it tends to be the plastics, right? There's lots of plastic in the world, and that plastic is in the ocean, and that plastic is actually like in our bodies. So we've done a pretty rigorous job of trying to eliminate chemicals inherent in the materials. And so there's this thing called the red list, and we have a whole sort of book about what is good and what's bad. So that was the content of the materials was sort of out, PVC being a really bad one, if you've heard about PVC. And then there's, we tried to use regional materials, right? We could have used materials from China or from Italy, but we chose to try and use as many materials from the Great Lakes region. And there's different circles, right? Great Lakes region, Greater Midwest region, then you move into the coast to try and sort of limit the amount of stuff you've got to bring in. The wood is all what they call FSC or sustainably harvested wood. So it's from managed forests, it's not just clear cut. The forests get replanted, they get managed. And then we try to recycle as much, like all the gravel, a lot of the gravel under the building is actually recycled concrete probably from the Kennedy. They crush it up and make them as like small rocks, and it just looks like regular rocks because it's concrete. We've salvaged, you guys know about the tree. The tree was harvested, that's the bench, right? There's wall tile. Angel was out hunting for wall tile. A lot of the tile in bathrooms was left over from other jobs. So, it's not a lot of recycled content, but there are some nice stories about it. The tree one, the wood turned out really nice, the harvesting at Oregon, they did a great job. And then construction waste. The other piece, construction projects tend to make a lot of waste. We recycled about 95% of all the stuff we generated. So there's that, and then there's an operational piece to this program that I'm going to work with Paul on to do composting, the whole idea of bringing the food in, compost the food, goes back to the farm, right? Again, we're trying to close these loops, right? There's the water cycle, there's the trash cycle, there's like all these right now, our whole economy is like one and done, right? It's all one and done. We're trying to sort of create these circular economies to try and, hey, there's a lot of salvaged material in Chicago that's still good. Can we use it, right? Is there ways to do it and try and build that economy of recycling and not throw stuff out? So you can see this Living Building Challenge is not just about buildings. There's like other bigger pieces to it that it reaches out into the society aspect of what a building does. Equity?
Yeah, along those lines, advocating for people who really just get what they get is the way we've been operating for a long time in society. And I think what we're trying to do is be more purposeful on trying to be more inclusive. So this, I guess, I'm going to start upside down. In the building of this building, the contractor engaged people from the neighborhood, people formerly from the LeClaire courts, to take part in not only training up and becoming a part of the workforce for construction, but also being a part of this specific project in their own backyard. And so that was a big piece of the project. I can't give a whole lot of detail on that because it's not my expertise. Erin, who's the owner's rep, she has all that, and it's been constantly been fed back to the CHA, who formerly owned this land and has an interest in the folks from LeClaire Courts who have a vested interest in knowing that this building is going to maximize their opportunities, but also universal access. There's a concept called universal design, and it's defined as maximizing the usability of material systems and products with minimal amount of adaptation for special needs. So if I'm able-bodied or if I'm not able-bodied, I have the same opportunity, same access. And so we try to consciously implement as many of the best practices for that. Some examples are that countertops are set at a height that's age appropriate in each village, and you'll see that they step up and they have access so that, and they're set at a height where it's usable for not only able-bodied children but also by children with special needs, so maybe somebody in a wheelchair and so forth. Trying to make the accessibility, the thing that we've been kind of pounded at ADA issues, trying to make them invisible, make them part of everybody's world. And so we do that through also providing views. Some of these doors have multiple portals. You put windows and doors so you don't whack somebody in the face, but you also want to know where you're going, and this gives equitable access to both people on site. No matter if they're someone this tall or someone 6-7 feet tall. So there's views of nature, access to nature, our big, equity pieces that were focused on the project. The gender neutral toilets, trying to, this is the first gender neutral toilet school that I've done in Chicago, and a lot of that has to do with changes in the code and changes the way people are looking at things. But you're on the front edge of that. You've got a public health care clinic. It's not just serving students, but it's also serving the community. So it's giving back to the community. It's giving them access to good, health care. There's community gardens, giving them opportunities to grow their own fresh food. You're going to teach classes out in the community hall, so that there's nutrition becomes not just a job for everybody to teach the kids here, but also teaching parents, so that when they go home, there's also a vested interest in healthy eating and understanding where your food comes from and understanding responsible food for ourselves. I think that's the bulk of it, but feel free if you have any questions. I'll pass it on to Angel
For beauty, so kind of just going back on one of the Petals is inspiration education. So you mentioned the community kitchen. There is a demonstration kitchen as part of that. That has the large island, and there's going to be TVs and demonstrating what's going on when you're having those classes. That's going to be available not only to you guys, but as the public comes in with the plaza that's still being developed, but that's being redeveloped right now. It's just a big concrete pad for you, but soon it'll be a sunken garden plaza. You'll have the market where the food that you're harvesting here will be able to be sold there. So that's adding more to the goal of the school. So it's really how this building is not only in the microclimate, but the macro as well, and the involvement as the first development as part of this major redevelopment of the Cabrera parcels. You have a grocery store that's coming, you have more multi-family housing. So you're just part of that whole mission of the site itself and the greater neighborhood as well, and the community. Biophilia and beauty is one of the last petal. As we mentioned, we have lots of windows. They kind of look random and chaotic as far as their placement, but there was some strategy to that. You have different ages, different heights, different perspectives, so we strategically place those elevations or those window elevations so everyone can have the same experience as they're looking outside and getting those views to nature. And there's also subconscious decisions as the number of windows. We had to work with the engineer to make sure we stayed under a certain threshold, so we're not more glass, more energy you're using, more heat that you're trying to get rid of, but so we reduced the glazing limits. We already talked about the fins, right?
No. Talk about the fins.
Okay, so you've noticed these on the outside. You have these extruding fins that come out the facade. They're strategically again placed to block most of the sun during those high times. As you're moving around to the south elevation, you only see it on the upper half, and then when you move to the west elevation, you'll see it on the west and south side. So that's all strategically placed. On the north side, they won't even have fins because they really don't need it. You want to let the north light in. That's good light for you. Same thing with the skylights. They're all facing north. They're not facing south. They're not getting that heat gain.
So there's a whole thing about the way that the sun, which moves, interacts with the building, which doesn't. So, I don't know what kind of curriculum that would be, but I mean, the thing is, the sun is dynamic and it's over the year, and the building is fixed. And sort of the building is designed, for this building, is designed to sort of maximize, we get the heat when we want to in the wintertime, right? We want the sun in the winter, we don't want it now. You'll notice, there's no sun right now, right? These are the hottest days of the year. There's no sun coming through the window onto the floor, right? You don't have shades. You don't need shades because the fins are taking care of all that very passively, very quietly, and it's just getting done, and it's super efficient. Whereas if you were in a regular building, guaranteed you would have these shades coming in because you'd have glare and you'd be like, what's going on, right? So there's a lot of kind of cool stuff that's happening. It's just happening, and we need to figure out a way of getting it to you so you can build it into your curriculum. Because for us, it's natural because we sort of do it, and we are writing a book that maybe can have some of this, but we need to figure out how to weave this in along with all the data, like all the monitoring and all this. But I mean, the building is doing a lot of cool stuff just by being here. The pipes, you know, the purple pipe, we talked about the purple pipes somewhere.
Well, we did mention the drinking signs, but the red is, in the red and the blue, that's for the piping to feed the radiant cooling. But then you'll see purple labels on some of the piping, maybe more towards the center. That's the non-potable water that's coming from the roof, down from the roof, back into play. That's where it's after it goes through the cistern and the day tank. Really should give them a tour next time of the mechanical rooms. Because we have the portals into the mechanical rooms. That another thing that we thought about, and it's part of the not only your teaching tools, but we're not closing mechanical rooms off, so you guys are going to be able to use those as teaching tools with them.
Have you guys walked around the building? Because there are the windows, right? So like you can see the water heater, right? There's a window. I mean, like most people, where's the water heater? Stuck in the basement. Here, it's on display. Most places, mechanical systems, they're up on the roof, except for the ones that are on the roof. We have windows into the mechanical rooms. And if you go to the outside of the building on the north side, I mean, that's like all glass. You can see right in, it's all there. So the idea is to sort of maybe label some stuff so it's easily understandable, but what you label for maybe a kindergarten would be different than what you do for an 8th grader. So you know, we're not experts in all that, but I mean, the bones are here for that to happen, because there is no school like this.
How much water, is the cistern like that big thing outside?
Yeah, it's the big metal tank outside.
And is it, I mean, you can never quite tell, farmers on how much water do you anticipate gathering like from the year, or is it like a?
Well, it's a 10,000, I want to say it's a 10,000.
I thought it was 60.
But it might be more.
Stop right off of it.
It's a lot of gallons.
That is the water, that is the water that is used for the toilets and
Yeah, there's no drinking water, it's
yeah,
separate
no,
from that.
right, right.
I mean, Living Building Challenge wants you to do all on-site treatment, literally not send any sewage off-site, but that is a bridge too far for the city of Chicago.
Yeah.
We got Jardine right over there, we should just hook up a pipe over to them, you know,
They're
I
not
don't
ready
know,
yet.
you know, but, yeah, or not Jardine, but.
But we are set up to do that eventually,
Oh, yeah.
once we advocate with the city that, hey, you know, this water is actually clean enough and we can wash our hands with it. We may not put it in the drinking fountains, but I mean, you could wash vegetables with it, like rinse them, like, I don't know, water.
Yeah, wherever you can't do with Living Building Challenge, you have to document what you did, and try to advocate to do what they exactly want you to do, and you have to advocate as much as you can for that to become possible for the next person who comes down the pike and tries to do the same thing. So, you know, we won't get through all the hoops. We got through a couple hoops here, but you know, the next person who comes along and does one of these pretty amazing buildings. But I don't think CPS is going to have. I think you guys are uniquely the right audience for this type of building in Chicago. It's like the right time, the right place, the right group. And I'm not saying it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows, because we're going to have all new buildings have some bugs that need to get worked out. We'll work through that with you. We're here to be part of that, part of that process. And over the next 18 months or so, you know, we want to make sure that we can prove out our energy. And you know, some of it will be simply just, you know, understanding where the pain points are, and doing, you know, either where we can, doing some behavioral modification if it's not, you know, disruptive to the educational experience or use of the building. But understanding the battery that we built and the budget we built of all the pieces of energy, are we hitting them? Are we way over? Are we way under? Well, how can we tune ourselves for that? So it's a really exciting project, and it's going to be an amazing environment for students. There's nothing like this, you know, that I've seen anyway. So.
I mean, this is all awesome, sort of on a practical level. Are there, you know, understanding as teachers, you know, when you watch, you know, a video or a movie and you want the room to be darker, how do you?
We're going to have shades.
You are? Okay.
The shades are in back order, unfortunately.
Okay.
So you will be able to darken the rooms for multimedia
Gotcha.
stuff.
And we know, we heard all the curved walls, and we're like, where's the flat wall to write on?
Yeah.
So I think you've solved the wall problem, right?
Yeah,
The white, yeah.
Oh.
yeah, we work with, I don't know, some or all of you know Trung Lee. Trung Lee's he's on the board, but he's also an architect. He also has been associated with the school for a long time, and he also is a big part of the way that the spaces are planned. So there are some spaces where, I don't know why it's this way, not just 3 degrees different, but those are questions for him. But that said, it's definitely a more dynamic environment. It's going to be a very different experience for you than teaching in a 30 by 30 CPS type classroom. And some of that will be good, some of it maybe not so. It's going to be different for sure. So.
I'm a music teacher, and I can